Good morning. Welcome, everyone. My name is Michael McKee. I'm the treasurer of the Tenants Political Action Committee. We are here today to talk about a very serious subject, which is dark money and how it corrupts our politics. I was asked to be part of this news conference, and I'm happy to do this because this is a subject that's very close to my heart. 8 years ago, which was the last time there was a significant turnover on the New York City Council, the Real Estate Board of New York, REBNY, through one of its front organizations called Jobs for New York, sounds pretty innocuous, right? Pumped about $5 million into about 22 races for New York City Council, which was the first time we'd ever seen the real estate industry or the real estate lobby get seriously involved in elections for New York City Council, as opposed to things like mayor or governor, or trying to help the Republicans keep control of the state Senate. They pretty much wasted their money because only two of the candidates that they supported through these independent expenditures in competitive elections won. All the other candidates they endorsed either were low-hanging fruit, meaning people who were going to win anyway, or candidates who did not win. But now we're seeing this again. In the special election that took place on February 2nd in northeastern Queens, a real estate developer, one of the most prominent in the city, Stephen Ross, pumped $200,000 into a special election for New York City Council in support of a machine candidate who actually won. And now we're seeing it again in the Bronx. We expect to see this again between now and June 22nd. We don't think this is the end. So we are very much concerned about this. This is wrong. It's an affront to our civil society. It is an attack on our democracy. Of course, it is enabled by the US Supreme Court through the Citizens United decision. So there's nothing we can do to change this law unless Congress, gets it together and does it. But in the meantime, we're going to call it out for what it is. It's a corrupt, corrosive practice, and it's time for it to stop. And now it's my pleasure to introduce one of our strongest allies in the state legislature in Albany, Senator Gustavo Rivera. You're muted.
Which, I'm usually the one that says you're muted. So I messed up on that one. Thank you so much, Mike. Good morning to you. Good morning, Mino and Elisa, and good morning to everyone who is with us on the Intertubes. So my name is Gustavo Rivera, State Senator for the 33rd District in the Bronx, and somebody who has seen this type of stuff before. Mi nombre es Gustavo Rivera, soy senador estatal del distrito número 33, y yo he visto este tipo de acción anteriormente. Now, I will bring you back to 2016. In 2016, now I should take you back to 2014 very quickly. 2014, City Council member Fernando Cabrera, who is now current candidate for borough president. Now he's terrible council member, terrible candidate, and terrible human, but we'll talk about that some other time. I defeated him and embarrassed him in 2014. 2016, he chooses to run again, and I wondered why. But then I found out why. Because outside interests that had no connection to the Bronx, to the city, or to the state, all of a sudden were dropping in hundreds of thousands of dollars. And weirdly enough, they're doing it again. Le recuerdo, en el 2014, para dar un poquito de historia, en el 2014, el concejal Fernando Cabrera, que ahora mismo es candidato para el presidente del condado del Bronx, es un terrible candidato, un terrible concejal y una terrible persona, pero de eso hablaremos otro día. Él, en el 14 perdió en contra mía, en el 16 se postuló de nuevo y yo preguntaba por qué. Pero después me di cuenta después lo que estaba pasando. Cientos de miles de dólares de externos de la ciudad de Nueva York y del estado cayeron en el condado del Bronx para ayudar a una persona que obviamente era alguien que era preferido de estos intereses exteriores. So what happened in 2016, again, as I said, is happening again. We're seeing interest now because REBNY is one part of it. And REBNY, again, it's an organization that certainly cares deeply about the pockets of landlords and does not really care about tenants, and has for a long time tried to get folks in the Assembly and the Senate to kind of be more aligned with them are seeing that there's an opportunity maybe to do something at the city council level. But also, as I said, this person, Alice Walton, who apparently is the wealthiest woman who has ever lived, and, you know, congratulations to her for that, could spend all sorts of money, all sorts of places, but chooses to spend it in particular political races. I wonder why. And makes me ask all sorts of questions about why they're doing it, but she is doing it. Hundreds of thousands of dollars against these two folks right here. I'll say it in Spanish, then I'll wrap up because I want these two ladies to talk about their experiences. Pero mire, nosotros en el 16, yo vi lo que estaba ocurriendo entonces y me preguntaba por qué es que está ocurriendo esto. REBNY, que es una organización que apoya a los caseros y no a las personas que viven en apartamentos, a las personas que rentan, ha tenido cientos de miles de dólares y millones de dólares para invertir en campañas políticas para apoyar a aquellas personas que van a apoyar sus intereses y no los intereses de nuestros vecinos. Y desafortunadamente lo están haciendo de nuevo y lo están haciendo en el Consejo Municipal. Aparentemente no quieren hacerlo en la Asamblea o en el Senado, pero quieren hacerlo ahora en el Consejo Municipal. Y eso es muy preocupante. Y la señora Walton, que es la mujer que ha tenido más dinero en la historia de la humanidad, y que Dios la bendiga por eso, puede gastar dinero en todos lados, pero prefiere invertirlo en sitios donde van a personas que van a apoyar sus intereses. Y eso me preocupa increíblemente. So the bottom line is this, folks. The reason why this is important for us to to be paying attention to is because right now we have choices to make between the future and the past. REBNY and the conservative forces that Alice Walton and her hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars represent are the past. Mino, Lora, Elisa, Crespo are the future. That is the choice that voters have to make right now. So don't fall for the okie doke. If there's hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars going from interests, even if people say like, you know, I don't want any of that money, it makes you ask, why are they spending it to begin with? That is the question that you have to ask. It is about the future and the past. We need to move forward. La diferencia que tiene que estar aquí es lo que tenemos que escoger es entre el pasado o el futuro. Mino y Elisa son el futuro. Esos intereses representan el pasado. Y tenemos que movernos en otra dirección. Y es por eso que yo le pido que no se deje engañar. Invierta en el futuro, en Elisa y en Mino. Pass it back to you, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you, Gustavo. Before I introduce the next speakers, just a word to any reporters. If you have a question, put it in the chat, and Rachel will call you when we finish with the speakers. We'll call you up in the order that you put the questions in, and please identify yourself and your outlet so we'll know who you are. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Mino Lora, who is a candidate for the City Council in the 11th City Council District in the Bronx.
Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you, Senator Rivera, for your words. Yes, so my name is Mino Lora, and I'm running for City Council here in District 11. As Mike said, corporate money needs to be removed from politics. It is undemocratic, and it undermines the voice and the needs of our residents. And it is absolutely appalling that corporate money has entered our council races here in District 11 and District 13. El dinero corporativo tiene que ser removido de la política. No es democrático y le quita el poder y la voz a nuestros residentes y a nuestros vecinos. Me disgusta que el dinero haya entrado aquí en nuestras carreras para la municipalidad en el Distrito 11 y el Distrito 15. The wealthy real estate interests are afraid of democracy, and they are using their riches to buy a council that serves them. And what's worse, these groups are deceptive. As we've seen this week in the mailers and in the local papers, their ads don't talk about the policies that they want to implement. They speak about everything else besides developments, rezonings, and land use. Los intereses del desarrollo de edificios y de real estate tienen miedo de la democracia y están usando su dinero para comprar un consejo municipal que los ayude a ellos. Y lo peor es que ellos están decepcionando y están tratando de engañar a los vecinos, porque en la papeleo y en los anuncios que ellos están poniendo, ellos no están hablando de que esto lo va a beneficiar a ellos, de que esto tiene que ver con vivienda y con el desarrollo de nuevos edificios. No, ellos hablan de todo lo demás menos eso. The purpose of the City Campaign Finance Reform Board was to make sure that elected officials represent the people of their district. Most of the people here in District 11 and in the Bronx are tenants, they're homeowners, and they need representatives in the city council who will stand up for them. If these real estate moguls and billionaires are putting their money behind a candidate or two, as voters, we need to be aware that this means that those candidates are the ones that real estate interests want on their council. El propósito de la campaña de finanzas, de reforma de finanzas en el nivel municipal, es para estar seguro que quien nosotros elegimos represente las necesidades de los vecinos. La mayoría de nosotros aquí en el Bronx somos inquilinos, tenemos nuestro propio hogar y nosotros necesitamos en el Consejo Municipal representantes que se van a levantar y van a luchar por nosotros. Si esta gente del desarrollo y de los intereses están poniendo dinero detrás de uno o dos candidatos, tenemos que estar muy claros que ellos quieren que esa persona tenga en el consejo porque creen que ellos son los que lo van a ayudar. And I've been very clear throughout this campaign that austerity budgets will not build us back. And these special interests clearly know where I stand as a progressive candidate in this race. I will be working with my state colleagues to fight for new taxes for billionaires, for millionaires, to cancel rent, and to make sure that we are putting commercial vacancy taxes here at the city level to incentivize landlords to lower the rents. We must subsidize our tenants so that we can provide protections and all of the essential services that we in the Bronx need and that here in District 11 we need. Yo he estado muy clara desde el principio de mi campaña. Estos presupuestos de austeridad no es lo que nos va a ayudar a salir de esta pandemia. Y los intereses especiales que están ahora poniendo dinero saben muy bien dónde yo me paro y los valores que yo tengo como una candidata progresista. Yo voy a trabajar junto con el senador Rivera y con mis colegas en el Senado para asegurarnos de que luchemos por los impuestos a los billonarios, a los millonarios, cancelemos la renta, pasemos los incentivos, los impuestos para los landlords comerciantes, para asegurar de que bajen las rentas. Tenemos que darle dinero a los inquilinos para poder proveer las protecciones que ellos y nosotros necesitamos y los servicios esenciales que se necesitan aquí en el Bronx y en el Distrito 11. I urge voters of the Bronx to show up on March 23rd and to vote for the candidates who don't have special interest money, but rather a people's movement behind them, as we are the candidates that our community can trust to put people first. Y finalmente, para decir, yo le urjo y les pido a los votantes del Distrito 11 y 15 que salgan a votar el 23 de marzo, que salgan a votar de adelantado este fin de semana y voten por los candidatos que no tienen los intereses metiéndole dinero a su campaña, pero tienen a la gente y tienen al pueblo, el movimiento del pueblo detrás de ellos. Porque sabemos que estos candidatos somos nosotros que ustedes pueden confiar que vamos a poner a la comunidad delante y no los intereses de nadie más. Thank you so much. Gracias.
Thank you, Mino. Now we will hear from Elisa Crespo, who is running for the City Council in the 15th City Council District in the Bronx.
Thank you, Mike McKee. Thank you, Mino, Lora, Senator Rivera, for being here today and for helping us organize this very important press conference. You know, our public financing system is by design a vehicle for candidates to speak directly to the voters that make up their constituency. So when super PACs are allowed to influence that with outside spending, the process that New Yorkers help pay for with their tax dollars becomes compromised. New York's politics should not be determined by the wealthy few, especially of billionaire heirs from Arkansas. So while I'm fighting for jobs with a living wage and benefits, here is a billionaire connected to a company that practices union busting, that does not support benefits or pay a living wage to its employees, so much so that they push them to receive public benefits to make up for it. This is exactly what we should be working against as city council members in the city of New York. When you have individuals of great wealth against one of the communities hardest hit by poverty and marginalization, you start to see a pattern. These are the choices of people looking to profit off of the backs of working class New Yorkers and Bronxites. These donors of these super PACs are completely disconnected from the struggles that my community faces on a daily basis. Our education system in New York City continues to be underfunded. And as an advocate for a public education system, I've spent my time helping students and families navigate the bureaucracy of this underfunded system. So while New York students suffer, while District 75 students suffer, students with disabilities suffer, wealthy donors are able to influence the privatization of our education system by increasing the coffers of charter schools. So, ladies and gentlemen, these independent expenditures are far from independent. They come with access and they come with influence. And our communities run the risk of electing council members who will be inherently beholden to the special interests that back them. And while, yes, there may not be, in some cases, hopefully not, a direct coordination between candidates and super PACs, candidates running as Democrats receiving funds from conservative Republican-led groups in deeply blue districts should at least take the opportunity to denounce this behavior and make it clear where they stand. And that's not happening here in the 15th. And that's more concerning to me than anything else. I wish billionaires like Alice Walton, who are donating to these super PACs, would instead use those funds to invest directly into our public education system, or to help end our homelessness crisis or food insecurity in the Bronx, not flood low-income communities with countless mailer after mailer in their mailboxes. So the question begs why? Why do these outside special interests feel the need to invest in the candidates that they are investing in? And I can't help but to think that it's because they believe these candidates are the ones that are going to support their agenda. This is the reason why when I'm walking around the streets of the 15th Council District talking to voters, that they have no faith in the government system, in the democratic process, because outside wealthy donors get to infiltrate and get to undermine the democratic process here in a small city council district in Central Bronx. While candidates like me are hustling to raise $10 here, $20 there, here you have candidates receiving tens of thousands, in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars from people who don't understand our struggles and never will. Estoy luchando por trabajo y justicia, para trabajos con buen pago, con beneficios. Y aquí hay una empresa que practica la represión sindical. No apoyo los beneficios, ni paga un salario digno. Exactamente contra lo que estoy luchando. Estos gatos independientes están lejos de ser independientes. Viven con acceso e influencia y nuestras comunidades corren el riesgo de emplear a un miembro del consejo que será injustamente retenido para los intereses especiales que los respaldaron. Cuando una persona de gran riqueza puede influir y trabajar contra las comunidades más afectadas por la pobreza, está claro que los intereses de esta persona no están con los residentes del Distrito 15. Son las opciones de una persona que busca sacar provecho de la clase trabajadora. Thank you.
Thank you, Elisa. And I just want to point out that it's obvious, but we should all remember the election is a mere 4 days away. And some people have already voted and some people will be voting before Tuesday. We have a question from Mary Steffenhagen.
Mary, I'm going to unmute your line.
Okay, Mary, you need to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been wondering why does Ms. Crespo think that New Yorkers for a Balanced Albany, the super PAC that spent on independent expenditures in support of John Sanchez, why do you think that they focused more on his development and housing platform over charter school messaging, which is typically their lane? Thank you.
Before Elisa talks, I just want to say that this is typical of what these super PACs do. The Jobs for New York, which was a Rebney front in 2013, sent out mailers actually talking about how pro-tenant some of their candidates were. And this is a major landlord organization in New York City. Elisa, I assume you're going to be addressing this.
I mean, look, I can't speak for them, but I assume, number one, they want to mislead people into thinking that they care about housing issues. And perhaps they think that housing would resonate more with the people who they're sending these mailers to. But it is misleading and it is concerning and it is unfortunate. And I can tell you that these mailers are all over the district, littered in hallways, on the floors, and it's reprehensible that they are not only sending out mailers, but they're also buying ads. They're also paying to phone bank people and mislead them into thinking that they care about the housing conditions, when we all know that that is the least from the truth, the farthest from the truth.
And I would add, if I may, that listen, in the worst case scenario, or in the best case scenario, we're talking about here is that they figure that the candidates that they're not supporting are the ones that are going to be worse for them. They're saying, you know, that they basically looked at the group of folks and said, well, we know we can't allow someone like Elisa Crespo to be a council member there. We certainly can't allow someone like Mino Lora to be a council member up there. So we got to do everything that we can to make it so that they're less likely to win. So how do we achieve that? And so this is, and also I'll remind everybody, I mean, this is like, it's an unholy alliance, folks. You have like the likes of Alice Walton, who I have to point out, whose wealth is built on the sweat and blood of workers and small businesses all across the world. This is the Walmart family, right? They've made their money out of exploitation to make her the wealthiest woman alive. And she chooses to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, which to you and me are like $5, but drops it in in 2 races in the Northwest Bronx, one of the poorest counties in the entire country. Why is she doing that? And then at the same time, the folks from Rebney, again, who protect landlord interests for their entire existence, what kind of unholy alliance is that? That's what we're trying to point out here. But what also needs to be pointed out is that the same unholy alliance came against me back in 2016. And it was the organizing that we did that was able to defeat it. So this is the absolutely defeatable. This is absolutely resistible. And it is about the work that these 2 campaigns have been doing and will continue to do over the next couple of days, which is why we want to make sure that anybody who's watching, like as soon as you're done here, that put on a coat and try to go out and help these folks, or get on the phones and help these folks out, to make sure that we can have the interests of the people who actually, 2 people who actually care about these districts be representing in the city council.
Mary, do you have a follow-up question?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we have a question from Anthony Rivieccio.
It's spelled, it's pronounced.
I'm sorry, my Italian is pretty good, but Rivieccio.
Rivaccio, something,
Rivieccio.
something like that.
Show, not kill.
I have heard of this knucklehead before. Anthony, why don't you get unmuted there?
Good morning, Senator. How are you?
There he is. It's an uneventful day, uneventful couple of weeks, sir. So, you know, just bored.
Let me share with you that your moderator is correct. He said it correctly.
Oh, damn. Then I've been saying it correctly all this damn time. Sorry.
Yes, you have. But the question is very simple. It seems like in the last 24 to 48 hours, there seems to be a coalition of thought that maybe because these relate to candidate Eric Dinowitz, that there could be some, and I'm going to use your phrase, unholy alliance between maybe the Ben Franklin Club and that super PAC, considering that we know up here in the northwest section of the Bronx that the Ben Franklin Club is very close to losing its power in the Riverdale section. You know yourself, being one of the senators there, that the club that at one time held 5 electoral seats now only holds 2, with the city council seat being the second. So the question is do you think there's any relevancy or unholy alliance between the Ben Franklin Club and the powers that be?
But I'll tell you, first of all, I make no such allegations, particularly because if such this is an what do you call it? They can't coordinate. It needs to be uncoordinated, right? So if there is such a connection, which I have absolutely no evidence of, it would be highly illegal. So I'm not making that allegation. What I am saying when I'm talking about an unholy alliance, I'm talking about whether 2 groups, because 2 groups, by the way, independent expenditures can coordinate between each other. They can't coordinate with the candidates themselves. So I have no evidence or that there's any connection between candidates and these independent expenditures. But
I didn't ask you if you had any evidence. I just asked you, especially because Jessica Haller has announced through the Riverdale Press this morning that she believes that the Ben Franklin Club budget has not been looked at thoroughly and why they keep that budget private. And of course, you might know in years past, there's been some both allegations and preliminary investigations to the Ben Franklin Club's budget. Again, I'm not asking if you have any proof. I'm just wondering if any of the people there believe there could be any possible coordinated unholy alliance.
Gotcha. Well, Anthony, I'll certainly let everybody else answer when they do, but I just want to stick to the subject here. And the subject matter here is not the Ben Franklin Club. We can have that conversation another time. The issue here is the hundreds of thousands of dollars that are being spent by organizations that, unlike the Ben Franklin Club, which I might have differences with, but they certainly have a Bronx connection. Alice Walton has no Bronx connection.
Which is exactly the reason for the question.
So the answer for me is not to my knowledge, and I'll leave it at that. I don't know if anybody else wants to take it.
Yeah.
Mino?
Well, I'll just say one thing that we do know is that the real estate special interest had a stake and bought up the so many of the Senate seats, right? They held control. They had a lot of power. And we know that the IDC was key. And we know that the Ben Franklin supported Jeff Klein, who was the head of the IDC. So these are all facts. We also know that the progressive movement took it down. We know that Eric Dinowitz supported Jeff Klein, supported the IDC, because one thing comes with the other. You can't support one and not the other, right? So what we're seeing right now is real estate interest getting in the way and now trying to buy the council. They lost that supermajority. They lost it at the Senate when IDC left because we as a progressive movement fought back. We took Senator Biaggi beat Jeff Klein and Jamal Bowman separate in Congress, but we are seeing the movement move forward. We have the supermajority at the Senate, and now these special interests are saying, so your connection of, is there a connection? Well, the connection right there has to do with the IDC. They saw how that party or that political club or this group, this candidate that they are putting, look at the money, they're putting tens of thousands of dollars to support a candidate that supported Jeff Klein, who was friendly to real estate, who took away the Democratic majority. And they're now trying to do that here. So absolutely, there's a connection. We can see it. It's not that far away, right? The same candidate has openly said throughout this debate that he canvassed and he supported Jeff Klein. So I think that's the way in for real estate.
And I just want to chime in for two seconds about this issue, which is incredibly important about the IDC. The IDC was a real thing. It doesn't exist anymore, thank the good Lord, and thank the work of organizers. However, it is a real thing that existed that stopped the Democratic majority from becoming the Democratic majority, that stopped legislation on housing and HALT, which we just got passed the other day, or the Women's Equality Act, and we can keep going down the list, agenda, all of these things were stopped by the IDC. And who was the leader of the IDC? Jeff friggin' Klein. And folks, I am sorry, but if you willfully, happily went knocking on doors and talked about how great Jeff was at the height of his power, when many of us, like Mike McKee, who might be in a different part of your screen, but wherever he is, he's there, or wherever he is, him and hundreds, if not thousands of organizers and people all across the state were clamoring, do not stand with this person because he is standing in the way of progress. Folks, when you, and I'm sorry, Eric, and I'm calling you out, brother, but when you say that you helped Andrea Stewart-Cousins become the majority leader, that is bullpucky of the highest magnitude, because you happily walked, you went up and down stairs, you got signatures, you knocked on doors, you said how great Jeff Klein was, and you worked your butt off to make sure he became the senator there, and he stayed the IDC leader. Bro, you doing that means you actually stood in the way of progress. Sorry, but that's the reality. So just want to say, you can't change history. When people were standing up against something at a point and one moment, and you didn't actually do the same thing, it means you stood against progress. I just want to say, we got a question from Jeff Colton, I believe.
Right, but for the record, I just want to say that the Ben Franklin Club also supported Jeff Klein in 2014 when Oliver Coppell ran against him in a primary, and Ollie was one of the founders of the club. And now we have a question from Jeff Colton of City and State.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Nope.
Yes.
I think that sounds like a yes. Thank you. Look, if we're talking about outside spending, Elisa Crespo has also been the beneficiary of some outside spending from a group that also, as far as I can tell, doesn't have, a connection to the Bronx like we were talking about. Obviously, the spending is much smaller. We're talking about, $16,000 versus like $160,000, so much smaller. But I'm just wondering if the candidate or if the senator would like to explain the difference here if we're attacking candidates for outside spending, why we can't be looking at this other group.
Are you talking about our city?
Our city specifically,
Okay.
yeah.
Elisa.
Jeff, the difference is our city represents the values of most of the constituency in this district. And this is a left-leaning group that supports canceling rent, that supports strengthening public district schools, that supports progressive values, and that is raising grassroots small dollar donations in order to support not just me, but multiple candidates in this race. And so I think you cannot compare our city to voters for a balanced New York or voters of New York, or to folks that are cozying up to Donald Trump, to the Jeffrey Lebs, the Stephen Rosses, and the Alice Waltons, who are all involved with injecting large amounts of monies to other candidates who represent conservative values and who are profiting off the backs of working class people. So completely different. You cannot compare the two. And you pointed out this, the amount of money that is being spent is astronomically different.
Gustavo, did you want to add anything?
Just very quickly, that it is certainly, I've always been very much a fan of a fully public finance campaign system, and we need one at the state level. Hopefully we're going to get a real one soon. But anyway, but at least I hit it right on the head. It's about values. Like Alice Walton of the Walmart family, like virulently anti-union, anti-gay, pro-Trump, like that's who she is. And she's putting her money onto this thing. And then and then Rebney, who for a long time, again, was funding candidates in the Senate and the Assembly to make sure that we held back anything related to progress for tenants' rights. It's about values. So it's the difference there is clear. It's about values.
And if I may, Jeff, I just want to add, look, our financing system needs to be reformed. And independent expenditures should not be allowed. and we need to repeal the Citizens United case. And so no matter where the independent expenditure comes from, at the end of the day, all of it is bad. And so I just want to make sure that I put that out there.
Well said.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's it, everyone. Thank you so much. And don't forget to vote.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you
Have
so
a good
much.
one. Be safe today.